I've just received early access to a new feature in Claude that I believe is pretty cool. So before I even explain it, let me show you exactly what it is. You basically type in something like, build me a complex color palette I can play with. This is just an example, by the way. And this is what it created for me. So it's an interactive interface that, well, does whatever I need. I can change this from monochromatic to this. I can select this, and it gives me a pretty nice interface. Another example is a paper plane folding guide. I only typed in, show me how to fold a paper airplane, use the visualizer design guidelines to do so. And this is exactly what you'll want to type to trigger it to actually use this tool. And this is what it produced. So basically you can hit next and it shows the step by step. If, like me, you create educational content, you might have seen the content potential here. Another example is a visualize how the moon phases work. Use the visualizer design, blah, blah, blah. Basically, I can slide this, and as you can see, it shows exactly the phases of the moon. I can go down here, click on a specific phase. So this one, this, or whatever. All right, so now that you've seen the feature, you might be thinking, like I did initially, well, how is this different from artifacts? Because we have always had access to HTML where we can ask it to build a stock analyzer. It would then compare two stocks. And this is actually like dynamic data that it should use APIs and not only a front-end design-oriented visualization. So in this example, just by hitting compare, I can compare two stocks along with an AI analysis that is actually using Claude to do so. Now, the reason why I think this is brilliant, especially the way that they did it, is that this serves a specific purpose of explaining something, of getting a message through. This right here is one of my favorite videos from Claude, and what it says at the very end is the AI for problem solvers. So that's the market they're trying to reach. Instead of concentrating purely in text to answer someone, it's going for the idea that a picture is worth 1,000 words. And this is more than a picture. It's actually interactive. You can actually learn much more from something illustrated, something that you can interact with. And because it's an actual guideline to a design visualizer, it has way more control of what it's building instead of an HTML that can be absolutely anything. Now, something else that came in mind is the widgets feature from OpenAI. They've launched something similar. But to be honest, I think over a year before OpenAI built widgets, there were AI SDK UI. Now, the idea here is the same. What is the weather in San Francisco? And then it uses a component to render the response. But the difference here is that it's using a template. It's not actually generating that specific UI inside of the chat interface. And that's explained down here. You can actually create the component that basically holds those variables that the agent will use inside of the chat interface. Now, as for OpenAI, they actually have a widget builder that you can build that specific component that will also be used by the AI assistant. And by the way, this technology isn't completely revolutionary. What is revolutionary is the way that Claude's LLMs work in fetching these specific tools and using them as effective as they are. Because honestly, even inside of OpenAI, when I've created my own widgets, it doesn't create things like this. Even if I define those specific components, I'll have a hard time configuring them in a way that the agent will use them effectively. And Claude is dynamically creating everything. So, I mean, I know there's a bunch of useless hype in the AI industry, but this is honestly pretty cool. And the way I believe we as builders can use this feature is by designing our own visualizer design guidelines for our specific app. In this sense, it would kind of be in the middle of what we used to implement with widgets inside of OpenAI and a much more dynamic ecosystem of building nearly everything. But for our app, we wouldn't want our agent just building random stuff, but specifically for what our app actually does. So if it's a finance app, it would be pretty cool for it to design specific charts, graphs, or overall explanations so that the research for our end users is much better. So yeah, that's it for this video. If you enjoy building, make sure to subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video. Till then.